In the heart of San Francisco Bay stands a small island. From a distance, it looks like nothing more than a piece of rock surrounded by water. But behind those walls, more than 1,500 prisoners lived, and that island became home to one of the most famous prisons in American history, Alcatraz, a prison built for men whom other prisons had failed to control, violent men, disruptive men, and men known for trying to escape. For decades, the idea was simple: no one escapes from Alcatraz. But was that really true? Or was Alcatraz just waiting for one attempt to reveal that even the strongest prison could have a weakness? To understand why escaping from Alcatraz was so terrifying, we first need to know where the prison was. Alcatraz was not in a distant country. It was not hidden in a remote desert. It was in the United States of America, in the state of California, in the middle of San Francisco Bay, on a rocky island known as Alcatraz Island. The island was relatively close to the city, but far enough away to make reaching the mainland a dangerous task. A prisoner who made it beyond the prison walls would not find a direct path to freedom. Ahead of him, cold bay water, powerful currents, and a distance that could not be underestimated. And this is where geography became part of the prison itself. The walls were not the only barrier, the sea was the greatest one. Alcatraz did not begin as a federal penitentiary. Before that, the island was a military site. It had already spent decades serving military and detention purposes. Then, in 1934, everything changed. Alcatraz became a maximum security federal penitentiary. The idea was not to send every prisoner in America there. The idea was more specific. If a prisoner caused problems in another prison, if he repeatedly tried to escape, or if he managed to control other prisoners or even influence the system, his destination could be Alcatraz. The prison was a message before it was a building, a message that said, if other prisons cannot stop you, perhaps Alcatraz can. The prisoners of Alcatraz were not all the same kind of criminal. Some were known for violence, others had long histories of escape attempts, and some were among the most famous names in American crime, among them Al Capone, George Machine Gun Kelly, and Robert Stroud, better known as the Birdman of Alcatraz. But fame alone was not the reason a prisoner was sent to Alcatraz. The prison was designed for men considered difficult to control in other federal prisons. Over 29 years, more than 1,500 prisoners passed through the island. They were not all there at the same time, but every one of them knew. They had not been sent there for a second chance. They had been sent there to lose many of the chances they once had. At Alcatraz, the day did not simply begin when a prisoner woke up. It began with a count, and counting was part of almost everything. Prisoners woke up in the morning, then they were counted, they went to breakfast, then they were counted again. After that, some went to work, others remained in different sections of the prison, and at every stage, the authorities knew who had left, who had returned, and who was supposed to be where. There were meals, work assignments, strictly scheduled periods, and returns to the cells. Then another count. After dinner, the prisoners returned to their cells, and another night began, in the same place, in the same world, and perhaps with the same thought. How could I escape? At Alcatraz, there was a difference between what a prisoner received as a basic right and what he could earn as a privilege. Food, clothing, shelter, and medical care were basic necessities. But work, the library, visits, and certain forms of recreation could be privileges earned through good behavior. Inside a place like Alcatraz, even the things people consider ordinary could become privileges. And so, the punishment was not only the walls, the punishment was repetition, the same cell, the same corridor, the same count, the same doors, and the same question. How long will this continue? Alcatraz did not rely on the sea alone. Geography was not enough to run a prison. So the prison was reinforced. Stronger bars, guard towers positioned at strategic locations, strict rules, and constant supervision. Prisoners were counted repeatedly throughout the day, and every movement was watched. A prisoner did not move from one place to another, without someone knowing where he had gone, where he was going, and why. The philosophy of Alcatraz was simple. If a prisoner had managed to deceive another prison, do not give him the same opportunity here. It did not take long. On April 27, 1936, Joseph Bowers attempted to escape. He was working near the prison fence. Then, he decided to take his chance. He climbed over the fence and began to run. But freedom was only a few steps away. He was warned. He did not stop, and the attempt ended with gunfire. It was the first federal escape attempt from Alcatraz, and its message was clear. The prison would not wait for anyone who tried. But one attempt was not enough to kill the idea. In 1937, two men attempted to escape through a window, and in the water, they disappeared. After that, there were more attempts, through windows, from work areas, and some turned into violence and hostage situations. Then in 1946, one of the most violent confrontations in the prison's history took place, the Battle of Alcatraz. 3 days of violence, guards, prisoners, weapons, hostages, and an escape attempt that turned into a small war behind the walls. The battle ended, but the idea of escape did not. Between 1934 and 1963, Alcatraz witnessed 14 separate escape attempts. 36 men were involved. Some were captured, some were shot and killed, some drowned, and others remained missing. But Alcatraz was not simply a prison that prisoners tried to escape from. It was a contest between two minds, the mind of the prison and the mind of the prisoner. Every lock might have a key, every wall might have a weakness, and every system might have a mistake. Then came 1962. That year, Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin did not look at Alcatraz the way the other prisoners did. They began doing something else. They watched, they waited, and they studied. Behind the walls of their cells, a plan began to take shape, a plan that would require months of patience. They had no guns, they had no boat, and they had no guarantee of survival. But they had something else: time, determination, and an idea. That may have sounded insane, to leave their cells without the guards knowing, to cross the water without a real boat, and to disappear, leaving behind only one question: where did they go? On the morning of June 12, 1962, something was wrong inside Alcatraz. 3 prisoners were not in their beds. But the guards did not realize it immediately, because something was lying there, in their place. And from that moment, one of the most famous escape stories in history began. 3 men, a missing section of wall, fake heads designed to create the illusion of sleep, and a boat that was not really a boat. Then they disappeared. Did they drown in the freezing waters, or did they reach freedom? More than 60 years later, the world still has no definitive answer, and perhaps that is why the story of Alcatraz never truly dies.